I read a 400-page long book about mosquitoes. And no, I didn't read a 400-page long book about the anatomy of mosquitoes and their life cycles and stuff like that. I learned that in like 4th grade. I actually learned about the Roman Empire and the Columbian Exchange and how the Civil War was all caused by mosquitoes. This one book changed my entire outlook on the entire world and history. And it really shows how mosquitoes shape the world in such a unique way. And if you think mosquitoes are already evil and you want them gone, you have no idea what they've done. In this book, we begin in early history, examining some of the most important and influential empires ever. Looking at empires like the Greeks or the Romans, where we get to see how Alexander the Great really benefited from having mosquitoes to allow him to succeed and really build his empire. Or the Romans, who were surrounded by swamps which actually had mosquitoes, which fended off attackers. And in this section, you really get to see that mosquitoes are kind of a hard carry for these empires. And though they had other factors that allowed them to succeed, having their mosquitoes on their side really were a key factor to their success and eventually their downfall. These empires, such as the Romans or Greeks, are essential and still have impacts on our current day society. And it's really cool to see how, even in early history, we still get to see mosquitoes having that impact and allowing these empires to be successful and eventually leading to them. As I said, the Romans were surrounded by swamps, which fended off attackers, but they were also surrounded by swamps. So eventually, the mosquitoes got them. These trends just continue as we go further into the book. As we slowly move through history, we get to look at the Mongols or the spread of Christianity, and we really get to see how all of this was impacted by mosquitoes, and it really leads to our current day society as we continue to work through the book. And finally, if this kind of freaks you out and makes you wonder, how can we get rid of mosquitoes? Well, the last chapters do discuss this and the attempts humans have taken to really prevent mosquito diseases and take out mosquitoes. And honestly, after reading that, you kind of realize mosquitoes aren't going anywhere. So why should you care? I mean, you're sitting in a room listening to blabber about how mosquitoes led to the greatest civil wars ever and the rise and fall of some of the greatest empires, the greatest leaders ever. I mean, that sounds all crazy, and what does it really matter at the end of the day? Well, eventually you kind of lose sight of the mosquitoes with this book. And most of the time you're just learning about the history of the world, learning about the greatest leaders ever and how they won their battles and built up their civilizations, and what eventually led to the fall of a lot of these civilizations. And though mosquitoes are a dictating factor and are often talked a lot about within the book, you really do just get to learn a lot about history in general through the facet of mosquitoes. And sure, you can learn a lot of this information through your high school history classes, but to be honest, it's much more entertaining to read through this single book than it was to ever read through a textbook and homework assignments. But for some, learning through a textbook or a classroom is the most enticing or captivating environment. I know for me, I wasn't the most successful learning about European history or US history through a classroom. Rather, I was more successful reading it through this single book. But seriously, this is my first ever real history book I ever went through. And it's such a unique way to go through it. You're not just getting facts about leaders and civilizations and a bunch of information thrown at you. And though that can be a good way to learn, it really isn't the most enticing or entertaining way. And at the end of the day, that is not a long-term solution to learn about history. And though this book only really gives you 1 or 2 chapters per era of civilization that you learn about, it really has impacted me and caused me to think more about how I can continue to learn about history. And honestly, if you already know a lot about history and there's certain parts of history that don't really entice you, this book never really drags on. You're only getting a chapter or 2 to really learn about a certain topic. So if it doesn't excite you, it doesn't matter. You'll be moving on to the next part of history. So please, whether you love history or you've never even picked up a history book in your life like me before this, just read this book. You're going to learn so much about history through this one book. And it's really going to impact you and want you to learn more, just like it did to me. And hell, I literally went and picked up 2 different history books about 2 different eras within history due to reading this book. And I'm so excited to learn about these books and talk about them on this channel. So
Mosquitoes are needed to suck us